If you own a coal-fired generating plant, you're in the business of selling electricity. If you decide to install a carbon capture and sequestration plant, you will have to use 1/3, roughly, of the electricity that you are presently selling just to power the carbon capture and sequestration facility. So your business plan has just taken a big hit. And the public's appetite for socializing those costs and financing them with tax revenues is likely to be limited given the sheer volume of the CO2 that is involved. Depending on how you do the calculations, 3 times every day the amount of oil imports, 3 times by weight all of the natural gas shipped around the country in our pipeline system. It can be done. The good news about carbon capture and sequestration is that it works. It can be captured and it can be put deep into the ground in ways that are probably safe. Unlike nuclear waste, the longer it's down there, the safer it gets, because it is trapped in the capillaries of the rocks, as they call these little spaces there. And yet, again, the volume is such that the number of appropriate geological rock repositories is so great, it requires an enormous amount of scientific and engineering work to characterize the sites, to find the appropriate geology, to determine that they are adequately safe. If, for example, there's some abandoned water well that runs down through it, and that can serve as a chimney for it to come back up, and sometimes in dangerous ways. But if it's done well, it is almost certainly safe. I came to the conclusion that there is a burden of implausibility having to do partly with the cost and partly with the amount of time that it would take to develop this technology, that it's probably not going to be used in the near term on a large-scale basis. I could be wrong, but if we travel down that solutions pathway, we should be prepared for a lot of expense and a long period of time. It will play a role. But we should go about it in a very clear-eyed way, and that chapter deals with exactly how to accomplish that. The next chapter, as I indicated, is on nuclear power. I came to a similar conclusion about nuclear power. Now, I used to represent Oak Ridge, Tennessee, where my constituents were immune to the effects of radiation. And I was too. So I was very enthusiastic about it. And I am not anti-nuclear at all, but I have grown skeptical about the role that nuclear power is going to play. I think that it will play a somewhat larger role in the future than it plays today. But there are a couple of reasons why it is not going to be a so-called silver bullet. Reasons why I believe it is not likely to be a major part of the solution to the climate crisis. And here I'm not talking about the problem of nuclear waste storage. That's a serious issue. But let's assume for the moment that we'll figure out how to solve that. I think we can eventually solve that. Let's assume the safety problems can be solved. I've watched so many episodes of The Simpsons, I know that some of those safety problems are kind of difficult. But and I mean no disrespect to the people in the industry, I really do not. But the safety problems are there because the technology in its early iterations has been somewhat vulnerable to accidents, vulnerable to terrorist attacks. But let's assume that all those problems can be solved. That still leaves 2 major problems. Number 1, cost. The cost of nuclear power plants has been increasing by 15% per year for 35 years. And by the law of compounding numbers, you know that means enormous cost increases. What used to be a $400 million reactor is now a $4 billion reactor. And during my research, I found, to my satisfaction, that you cannot find a reputable engineering firm anywhere in Europe or the United States and much of Asia where an engineering firm will give you a reliable estimate on how much it will cost to complete a new nuclear plant, or how long it will take to finish a new nuclear plant. People hold up France as a great example of success. Their new reactor design has been replete with problems. Their new one in France has been under construction for 1 year. It's 1 year behind schedule in construction and way over budget. Same in Finland. I won't go into these details. I'm trying to skip over the details to give you an overview of all these chapters. But the cost is a serious issue, not least because the present generation of nuclear reactors only come in one size, extra large. And if you own an electric utility, you have a construction budget. And you've got to guess or estimate to the best of your ability how much electricity you're going to have available for sale 10, 15, 20 years from now, and intelligently allocate your construction budget to meet that demand. In an era of uncertainty over how much energy demand is going to be available, how much the alternatives will displace, how much conservation and efficiency will displace, what's going to happen in the world oil markets, which has been on this roller coaster for 35 years since the first Arab OPEC oil embargo of 1973. They face a lot of uncertainty. If you face that uncertainty, do you want to take your entire construction budget and bet it on one humongous nuclear plant where when you don't know when it'll be finished or how much it'll cost when it is finished? Probably not. Environmentalists get the brunt of the blame for the slowdown in the nuclear industry, but really it's primarily economics. The utilities have had it. Now, the large government subsidies, which may be about to get larger still, may lead to many of these new plants being built. But in a competitive energy marketplace, this would not be the option of choice. There will be new nuclear power plants, and it will play some role. But there is a second problem that prevents it from being scalable globally. And whatever energy choices the United States and the other wealthy countries make will be looked at as models by the rest of the world. Now, the problem with putting nuclear plants in Libya or Sudan or North Korea or Iran, you're beginning to leap ahead of me. The connection between nuclear power generation and nuclear weaponry was presented in the 50s and 60s as not a problem. But it is a problem, because the technology for enriching nuclear materials has advanced rapidly. I mentioned Oak Ridge earlier. That is where the first gaseous diffusion plant was built. And I got a kick out of this controversy over one of the senators negotiating special benefits for his state in the healthcare plan. You may or may not know the story of Oak Ridge. Franklin Roosevelt, in the darkest days of World War II, got the famous letter from Albert Einstein and Leo Szilard, I believe, Einstein wrote to the president that the Nazis were close to getting an atomic bomb, explained what it was, we have to do this. So the president called in the Speaker of the House and the Senate Majority Leader, the Chairman of the House and Senate Appropriations Committee, just four of them, and said, we have this incredible challenge, and it's going to be expensive, it has to be completely secret.